The text that changed everything. I never imagined my life would unravel in a single moment. But that's exactly what happened at 10:42 a.m. on a seemingly ordinary Wednesday. My phone buzzed with a message notification. At first, I barely glanced at it, assuming it was just another work email or a random promotional text. But the name on the screen made my heart pause. Alex, my husband of 10 years. I swiped the screen and read the message. I don't love you anymore. I want a divorce. From now on, all communication will go through my lawyer. That was it. No explanation, no softening of the blow. Just a cold, emotionless declaration that 10 years of marriage were over. I stared at the words, my fingers gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. My breath hitched, and for a second, I wondered if this was some kind of cruel joke. Maybe he meant to send it to someone else. Maybe this was a mistake. I immediately dialed his number. No answer. I tried again, straight to voicemail. A sinking feeling settled in my chest. I switched to texting. Me, Alex, what is this? What's going on? Me, Alex, call me. We need to talk. You can't just end things like this over a text. Nothing, not even the little read notification. I paced the kitchen, my mind spinning. Just last night, we had dinner together. He kissed me on the forehead before bed. He was acting normal, or was he? Looking back, I realized he had been a little distant. More phone calls than usual, more late nights at work. But I had chalked it up to stress. Now, I wasn't so sure. Something wasn't right. Then it hit me. The name he mentioned in his message. His lawyer. If he had already spoken to a lawyer, that meant this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This wasn't a fight that had escalated into rash words. This was planned. That realization sent a chill down my spine. I took a deep breath and made a decision. If Alex wasn't going to answer me, I'd go straight to the person he trusted to handle his dirty work. His lawyer. A lawyer's slip-up. I scrolled through my contacts and found the number. David Green. Alex's longtime attorney, a polished, no-nonsense legal shark. I had met him a few times at corporate events, always in a crisp suit with an air of quiet authority. I tapped the call button. The line rang twice before a deep voice answered. This is David Green. How can I help you? I clenched my jaw, forcing my voice to stay calm. David, it's Kelly, Alex's wife. A pause. Too long of a pause. Mrs. Carter. There was tension in his voice, something uneasy. What can I do for you? I exhaled sharply. Alex just sent me a text saying he wants a divorce. He told me all communication should go through you, so I'm calling. Silence again. Then an exhale. A sharp one. Almost frustrated. That's when my gut told me something was seriously off. Are you saying he already sent you the message? David asked, his voice suddenly urgent. I frowned. Yes. Why? There was rustling on the other end of the line, papers shifting, a chair scraping against the floor. Then, suddenly, his voice rose. But not at me. God damn it, Alex, you idiot. My blood ran cold. Why was my husband's lawyer angry? And who was he yelling at? David, I said, gripping my phone. What's going on? Listen to me carefully, Kelly, he said, his voice low and urgent now. Have you signed anything? Any documents? I blinked. No, just the text. Good, he muttered. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. And for the love of God, don't talk to Alex. My stomach dropped. Why? David hesitated. Then he let out a breath that sounded a lot like regret. I'm not supposed to be telling you this, but your husband has been keeping secrets from you. Huge secrets. And if he finalizes the divorce before you find out, he keeps everything. I gripped the edge of the counter, my breath coming in shallow bursts. Everything? David's voice was firm. Yes. If you want any chance of fighting back, you need to act fast. Find out what he's hiding before it's too late. Then the line went dead. A marriage built on lies. I stood in my kitchen, phone still clutched in my hand, heart racing. Alex was hiding something. And whatever it was big enough that his lawyer, his own lawyer, was worried about me being left with nothing. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. For 10 years, I thought I knew my husband. We weren't perfect, but I believed we were solid. Had it all been a lie? I needed answers. I grabbed my car keys and rushed upstairs to change into something more comfortable. Jeans, sneakers, a hoodie. If I was going to dig for the truth, I wasn't going to do it in my bathrobe. Alex had an office at home, but most of his work was handled through his firm. He was a financial consultant, dealt with investments, assets, and money. And suddenly, I had a very bad feeling that money was at the center of all of this. I reached his home office door. Locked. Of course it was. But I wasn't just his wife. I was also the person who cleaned this house, who knew every little detail about his habits, including the fact that he kept a spare key behind the bookshelf. I reached up, felt around the top shelf, and found it. Click. The lock turned. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. Stacks of neatly filed papers, organized down to the last detail. My eyes scanned the room until they landed on his desk, specifically the locked drawer on the bottom left, the one he never let me open. I knelt down and entered the passcode. Click. The drawer slid open. Inside were bank statements. And the very first one I pulled out made my breath hitch in my throat. $8.6 million. A hidden account. One I had never known existed. My hands shook as I flipped through the documents. Transfers, offshore accounts, all his name alone. I suddenly understood David's panic. This wasn't just about a divorce. Alex was trying to erase me before I found out he was hiding millions. My fingers tightened around the papers. He thought he was one step ahead. He was wrong. I pulled out my phone and did the only thing I could. I called David Green back. This time, he was going to tell me everything. This is just the beginning. The betrayal, the hidden fortune, the revenge, everything is about to explode. Kelly isn't just going to fight back. She's going to destroy him. The secret bank account. The room was spinning. My fingers tightened around the stack of bank statements, my pulse hammering in my ears. $8.6 million. That's what Alex had been hiding from me, moving it, little by little, over the past year. And now, he wanted to divorce me before I ever found out. I took a shaky breath and reached for my phone. My hands were trembling so badly that I nearly dropped it. I scrolled down to David Green's number, the same lawyer Alex had trusted to keep this secret. I hit call. The phone barely rang before David picked up. "Kelly," he answered, his voice tense. "Did you find it?" My throat was dry. I gripped the bank statements in my lap. "You tell me," I said, my voice cold. "How long have you known about this account?" Silence. "Kelly," he sighed. "I told Alex this would blow up in his face. I warned him. But he didn't listen." "So you knew?" My voice shook with anger. "You knew he was hiding millions from me, and you were helping him do it." David let out a slow breath. "I'm his lawyer. It's my job to do what he asks, but I never agreed with it. And the second he sent you that text before the paperwork was finalized, I knew he made a mistake." "A mistake?" "That's what he called betraying me, stealing from me, and planning to leave me with nothing. A mistake." I clenched my jaw. "Tell me everything." "Kelly, listen. No." I cut him off. "If you don't talk, I'll go straight to the court with these documents. I will file for fraud charges today." Another silence. Then, finally, he spoke. "Alex has been planning this divorce for over a year," he admitted. "He's been shifting assets, moving money into accounts under his name, and setting up legal barriers to ensure you wouldn't get a cent if you fought him in court. He was counting on you not finding out." I swallowed hard. So if I had signed the divorce papers without knowing, he would have walked away with everything. My grip tightened on the papers. Rage. That was the only word for what I felt. I had loved this man. I had spent 10 years building a life with him, standing by him, trusting him, and the entire time, he had been plotting against me. "Kelly," David said carefully, "I shouldn't be telling you this, but if you move first, if you file for divorce before he can clean up the mess, you will be the one in control." I sat there in silence, gripping the phone so tightly I thought it might crack. Then I made my decision. "David," I said, my voice steady now, "prepare the paperwork. I'm filing first." The first move. The next morning I walked into David's law office. He was already waiting for me, a stack of legal documents on his desk. He looked nervous, like a man who knew he was about to help destroy his own client. "I assume you want full asset disclosure," he said, sliding a document toward me. "I want everything," I replied coldly. David nodded. "Then you're going to need more than just those bank statements. If we take this to court, Alex will claim that money was his alone. He'll say he built it, earned it, and that you had nothing to do with it." I scoffed. "Except we were married when he started moving it." "Doesn't matter," David said. "He's already set up a legal defense. He'll argue you had no financial contribution, that he made all the investments himself. You need more than proof of the account. You need proof that he was deliberately hiding it from you." I leaned forward. And where would I find that? David hesitated. His assistant, he finally said. Lisa. Lisa's confession. Lisa was Alex's right hand. She knew every email he sent, every financial move he made. If anyone had the missing piece of the puzzle, it was her. I met her at a small cafe downtown. She looked uncomfortable, shifting in her seat as I slid into the booth across from her. I don't know what you expect me to say, Kelly, she said, stirring her coffee. I work for Alex. I can't just— Lisa, please. I exhaled. I know you heard something. I know you know more than you're letting on. She hesitated. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a USB drive. This is all I have, she said, sliding it across the table. Emails, transactions, voicemails. He never deleted them. He was cocky. I picked up the drive, my heart racing. This was it. The evidence I needed. Why are you helping me? I asked. Lisa sighed, rubbing her temples. Because I've seen what he does to people. And because you deserve to know the truth. The plan that night, I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. And what I found made my blood turn to ice. Emails. Dozens of them. Conversations between Alex and his financial team. Proof that he had deliberately moved money under false accounts. Bank transfers. Statements confirming he had been shifting funds while we were married. And then the voicemail. I pressed play. Once she signs the papers, it's done, Alex's voice said. She'll never even know what she lost. My breath hitched. There it was. The proof. The smoking gun. I sat back, staring at the screen. Alex had played his game well. But now I was going to destroy him. The final step. The next morning I met with David again. You have everything you need? He asked. I slid the USB across the table. More than enough. He plugged it into his computer, scanning the files. A slow smirk spread across his face. Oh, this is beautiful, he muttered. This isn't just hidden assets, Kelly. This is fraud. If we present this in court, Alex won't just lose the money. He could be facing criminal charges. My stomach flipped. I hadn't even considered that. You still want to move forward? David asked. I took a deep breath. Then I nodded. Yes, let's bury him. The war begins. I walked out of David's office a different woman. I had spent years being the perfect wife. Supportive, patient, forgiving. But Alex had underestimated me. He thought I would be weak. He thought I would roll over and sign the papers without a fight. He thought he had won. But now I was in control. And I wasn't just going to fight for what was mine. I was going to make him regret ever betraying me. The confrontation. The moment I stepped into the penthouse, I knew Alex wasn't expecting me. He was sprawled on the couch, a glass of whiskey in hand, looking every bit the confident, untouchable man he believed himself to be. He didn't even glance up right away, just swirled the amber liquid in his glass before finally speaking. Kelly. His tone was casual, bored. Didn't expect you to show up here. That's a little desperate, don't you think? I ignored his smug expression and tossed the thick stack of bank statements onto the glass coffee table. They landed with a heavy slap, pages fanning out like a deck of cards. That got his attention. His gaze flicked down, and I saw the exact moment it registered. The bank transfers, the hidden accounts, the $8.6 million he had tried to keep from me. His smirk faltered. Where did you get these? His voice was no longer casual. I crossed my arms, tilting my head. You really thought I wouldn't find out? Alex sat up straighter, setting his drink down. Kelly, you're making a mistake. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. That's rich coming from you. He exhaled through his nose, clearly trying to stay calm. Look, he said slowly, choosing his words, you don't understand how these things work. That money isn't what you think it is. Oh? So it's not a fortune you illegally moved into a hidden account? A fortune you were planning to walk away with while leaving me with nothing? His jaw clenched. It's complicated. No, Alex, I leaned forward, resting my hands on the table. It's actually pretty simple. You stole, you lied, you got caught. His eyes darkened. What do you want? He finally asked, voice low. I smiled. Everything I'm owed. The last straw. Alex let out a slow breath, rubbing his temples like he was trying to piece together his next move. You're being irrational, Kelly. I raised an eyebrow. Am I? You have no idea what's really going on here. I sat back. Then enlighten me. For the first time he looked unsure. I could tell he was stalling, buying himself time to figure out an angle, an escape route. But it was too late for that. Finally, he exhaled sharply and shook his head. Fine, you want to play this game? He stood, adjusting his shirt, his face settling into a mask of cold indifference. You think you can win? Go ahead. Try. I met his gaze without flinching. I don't think I can win, Alex. I reached into my bag and pulled out another folder, one filled with copies of emails, phone records, and financial transactions. I already have. I tossed the folder onto the table next to the bank statements. He picked it up, flipping through the pages. And for the first time, real fear flickered in his eyes. Where did you get these? He demanded, voice tight. Doesn't matter. Lisa. He spat the name like a curse. I smiled. Oh, don't blame her. You should have been smarter, Alex. You should have deleted the evidence. You should have covered your tracks. His face hardened. You have no idea what you're doing. I tilted my head. Funny, that's exactly what David said before he told me everything. His entire body went rigid. David? Your lawyer, yes. I nodded. The one you trusted to help you screw me over. Turns out even he thinks you're an idiot. Alex's nostrils flared. You don't understand. This isn't just about the money. There are things. Save it. I cut him off, standing up. I don't care about your excuses. I don't care what justification you've convinced yourself of. Here's what's going to happen. I grabbed the original stack of documents and tapped them against the table, neatening the edges. You're going to agree to my terms. You're going to give me everything I'm entitled to. If you don't, I smiled sweetly. I take this to court. I expose everything. Alex's fists clenched at his sides. This isn't over, Kelly. Oh, I know. I picked up my bag and slung it over my shoulder. It's just getting started. The final decision. I didn't hear from Alex for 3 days. I wasn't sure if that was a good sign or a bad one. Then, on the 4th day, my phone buzzed. David's name flashed across the screen. He caved, he said the second I answered. We're drawing up the new settlement agreement now. He's giving you half. I exhaled slowly. And the fraud charges? That's where things get interesting, I frowned. How so? David hesitated. Let's just say he has more to lose than we thought. I tightened my grip on the phone. Explain. We found offshore accounts. Not just the 8.6 million, there's more. And let's just say some of it isn't exactly legal. I went still. Illegal? If this goes to court, Kelly, Alex isn't just losing money, he could be looking at prison time. I let that sink in. Prison. A part of me wanted to push for it, to see him pay for everything he had done, to watch him lose more than just his money. But then, what's my leverage? I asked. David let out a slow breath. You drop the fraud charges and you walk away with more than half. He's desperate, Kelly. He'll agree to anything if it keeps him out of court. A choice. Destroy him completely, or take what I deserved and walk away, for good. I closed my eyes, and then I made my decision. Tell him I'll sign. Are you sure? Yes. I wasn't letting Alex off the hook, but I wasn't wasting another second on him either. He had spent years scheming, lying, manipulating, and now he had lost everything. And me? I was finally free. The aftermath of betrayal. The courtroom was colder than I expected. I had always imagined them to be grand, dramatic, like the ones in the movies, where lawyers shouted, the judge banged the gavel, and justice unfolded in fiery speeches. But this was clinical, calculated, silent except for the scribbling of pens and the occasional rustle of paper. Alex sat across from me, flanked by his overpriced attorney. He looked worn. His suit, always perfectly tailored, seemed to hang just a little too loosely. His usual arrogance was dulled, his eyes shadowed. Good. He deserved to suffer. This wasn't just a financial fight. It was about everything. The years of deception, the betrayal, the cruelty of his attempt to walk away and leave me with nothing. And now he was losing. His attorney cleared his throat, pushing a stack of papers forward. Mr. Carter is prepared to agree to the revised settlement. David, my own attorney, gave me a small nod. The terms are more than favorable, Kelly. I didn't smile. I didn't react at all. I reached forward, flipping through the document, half of everything. His accounts, his investments, his properties, and then more. David had been right. Alex had so much more to lose than I had initially realized. There were hidden accounts overseas, money shuffled into shell corporations, things that, had I taken them to court, wouldn't just cost him his fortune but his freedom. He knew it, which was why he folded. I glanced up at him, holding his gaze. This is your best option, Alex. His jaw tightened. You didn't have to do this. I let out a quiet, humorless laugh. You did this to yourself. A muscle in his cheek twitched. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to say something else, to fight one last time, to regain some sliver of control. But there was nothing left. He was drowning. And this time, I wasn't pulling him out. I took the pen and signed my name at the bottom of the page. It's done. Alex exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his face. He looked like he wanted to throw something. Instead, he just sat there, silent, as I stood and turned toward the door. I didn't look back. A new beginning. It felt strange. For months, I had been living in survival mode, preparing for this fight, making sure I wasn't blindsided again. And now that it was over, now that Alex was gone, his influence severed, his money in my accounts instead of his, I should have felt relief. Instead, I just felt empty. I moved into my new home, a beautiful modern townhouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and a quiet neighborhood where no one knew my name. It was mine, purchased with my own settlement money. No more shared spaces, no more memories of him lingering in the walls. Still at night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what came next. For years, my identity had been wrapped up in being Alex's wife. Now, I had to figure out who I was without him. And I had no idea where to start. The final blow. The news broke 2 weeks later. Disgraced financial investor faces scrutiny for alleged misconduct. I sat in a coffee shop scrolling through the article on my phone. They had dug up everything. The offshore accounts, the shell companies, the quiet whispers of fraud and deception. I wasn't the one who leaked it. But I didn't need to. Alex had spent years building an empire on lies. And now it was all coming apart. I took a sip of my coffee, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. Alex had thought money was everything. He had lied, stolen, manipulated, all for power. And in the end, he lost it all anyway. An unexpected message. One evening, as I was settling into my new routine, reading on the couch, sipping wine, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated. Then curiosity got the better of me. I answered. Silence. Then a familiar voice. Kelly. I froze. Alex, what do you want? I asked, my voice sharp. He exhaled. Can we talk? I nearly laughed. Talk? Now you want to talk? Please. I hesitated, gripping my wine glass tighter. He was desperate. I could hear it in his voice. For years I had fought for his attention. For years I had wanted him to listen, to acknowledge me, to treat me like I mattered. And now he was the one begging me for time. I took a slow breath. I don't owe you anything, Alex. Silence. Kelly, I lost everything. Good. And with that, I hung up. For the first time in years, I felt free. The last goodbye weeks passed. Then a month. Then 2. I stopped checking the news about Alex. Stopped wondering where he was, what he was doing. He became nothing more than a memory. A cautionary tale in the back of my mind. I focused on my own life. I traveled. I started writing again. Something I had given up long ago when my life became consumed by him. I reconnected with old friends, laughed more, lived more. And one day, as I was walking through the city, enjoying a quiet afternoon, I caught a glimpse of him. Alex. Sitting alone on a park bench. His suit was wrinkled. His face was tired. There was no confidence left in his posture. He didn't see me. I watched him for a moment, waiting for some feeling to hit me. Pity, anger, nostalgia. But there was nothing. I turned and walked away, not looking back. The real victory I had won, not because I took his money. Not because I exposed him, not even because he had lost everything. I had won because I no longer cared. Alex had spent years believing he was untouchable, believing that I was weak, dependent, someone who would always stay in his shadow. But now I was untouchable. And that was the best revenge of all. A reckoning, long overdue. The gavel hit the judge's desk with a firm thud, sealing Alex's fate. I didn't smile. Not yet. Not as his lawyer leaned in, whispering furiously in his ear. Not as his face turned pale, the reality settling in. Not even as the judge looked directly at me and delivered the final blow. In light of the deliberate concealment of assets and fraudulent misrepresentation, the court finds that the petitioner, Kelly Carter, is entitled to 65% of all known assets, as well as punitive damages to be determined in a separate proceeding. Silence, and then chaos. Alex's lawyer stood up, objecting. The judge barely gave him a glance before waving him off. It was over. Alex had lost. I had won. The aftermath. Outside the courthouse, a light drizzle had started, the pavement damp and gleaming under the streetlights. I stood at the top of the courthouse steps, gripping the railing as I exhaled slowly. Months Months of fighting, of uncovering every secret Alex thought he had buried, months of lawyers, hearings, documents, proof of his deceit. And now he had nothing. I turned, expecting to see him storming out, furious. But instead, I saw a broken man. Alex stood in the doorway watching me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, "Was this enough for you?" he asked bitterly. I tilted my head, feigning curiosity. "I don't know, you tell me." "Was trying to steal everything enough for you?" His jaw clenched. I stepped forward, lowering my voice. "I didn't take anything from you, Alex. I only took back what was mine." His lips parted, but I didn't give him a chance to respond. I turned and walked down the steps, feeling the weight of years finally lift off my shoulders. A legacy in ruins. The news spread faster than I expected. By the time I got home, social media was already buzzing. Articles, tweets, news segments. Top financial investor loses everything in divorce scandal. Alex Carter's financial empire crumbles amid fraud allegations. Inside the billion-dollar divorce, the woman who brought him down. I scrolled through my phone, watching as reporters tore into every hidden transaction, every offshore account. And then, I saw the real fallout. His company. It was collapsing. Not because I had done anything, but because no one trusted him anymore. Investors pulled out. Clients abandoned him. Alex's entire life had been built on power, reputation, money, and now, he had none of it. A desperate attempt I should have known he would call. When my phone buzzed late that night, I didn't even flinch. Unknown number. I let it ring. Once, twice. Then, I answered. "Kelly." His voice was hoarse, defeated. "What do you want, Alex?" A long pause. Then, "I need to talk to you." I laughed, soft and sharp. "Oh, now you want to talk?" Silence. I let him sit in it. Let him feel what it was like to be the one waiting, the one desperate, the one ignored. "Please," he murmured. Something inside me stilled. Not out of sympathy, but because for the first time in years, I realized he had no power left over me. I leaned back, resting my head against the couch. "You got exactly what you deserved, Alex." "Kelly." Click. I hung up, blocked the number, and then I slept better than I had in years. Starting over, 2 weeks later, I moved into my new home. Not an apartment, not some penthouse Alex and I once shared. A house, a small, cozy home just outside the city, mine. There were no memories of him here. No ghosts, just peace. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waking up to fight battles, to anticipate betrayals. I was waking up free. I took a deep breath, sipping my coffee on the back patio as the morning sun filtered through the trees. I had won. Not just the case, not just the money. I had won my life back. And that was priceless. The final blow. I thought I had seen the last of him. But fate had other plans. I was at a charity gala when I spotted him. Alex. He wasn't alone. A new woman clung to his arm. Young, blonde, dressed in the kind of designer gown he used to buy for me. But his smile didn't reach his eyes. He was faking it. For years I had spent too much time studying his moods, reading his expressions, knowing when he was lying. And now I saw a man pretending to be fine. His gaze flickered toward me, and froze. For the first time since our divorce, he truly saw me. I was glowing, not because of the expensive dress I wore or the confidence in my step, but because for the first time in my life, I wasn't his. I was untouchable. The last goodbye. He approached me as I was leaving. "Kelly?" I turned, raising an eyebrow. "Yes?" A long silence. Then, "Did you ever love me?" I tilted my head, considering the question. Did I? Once, maybe. Before the lies, before the betrayals, before he turned into the man standing in front of me now. I smiled, small and knowing. "It doesn't matter anymore." His throat bobbed. He looked like he wanted to say something more, to ask for forgiveness, to rewrite our history. But the thing about history, you can't change it. You can only learn from it. I turned, stepping into the waiting car. The door shut behind me, and just like that, I left Alex Carter in my past, where he belonged. The best revenge. A month later, I saw the final headline. Once a financial mogul, Alex Carter declares bankruptcy. I didn't feel joy, I didn't feel pity, I just felt free. Because the best revenge is simply living well, and I was doing just that. I took a deep breath, looking at my future, a future without him. A future that was finally, unapologetically mine. A victory that echoed. I stood at the courthouse steps, the final papers clutched in my hands. It was over. The gavel had come down. The judge had spoken. Alex Carter was officially nothing to me. Not my husband, not my problem, and certainly not the man who had gotten away with stealing my future. I took a deep breath, exhaling as I looked up at the sky. The storm that had been brewing in my life for months had finally cleared. I had won. And he? He had lost everything. The final nail in his coffin. News spread fast. By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing with texts. Friends, old colleagues, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. They all wanted to talk about one thing: Alex's downfall. I scrolled through the headlines, each one worse than the last. Financial scandal: Alex Carter faces bankruptcy after legal defeat. High-profile investor exposed in hidden asset scheme. Ex-wife walks away with millions as Carter's empire crumbles. I smirked. This wasn't just revenge, this was justice. The man who had spent years plotting against me had ended up destroying himself, and I hadn't even lifted a finger. A desperate call. I was sipping wine on my balcony when my phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't have to guess who it was. I let it ring. Once. Twice. Then I answered Kelly. His voice was strained, desperate. I took a slow sip of my drink, savoring the moment. Alex, we need to talk. I let out a quiet laugh. Oh, now you want to talk? Silence. I could practically hear him grinding his teeth. Please, Kelly, I cut him off. There is no we, not anymore. I heard him exhale, long and shaky. I made mistakes. Oh, you did more than that, I mused. I lost everything, he admitted, voice barely a whisper. I stared at the city skyline, feeling nothing but satisfaction. That sounds like a you problem. He hesitated. I don't know what to do. For a brief second, the old me, the woman who once loved him, who once stood by him, felt a tiny pang of sympathy. But then, I remembered, the lies, the betrayal, the text message that ended our marriage like I was disposable. And suddenly, I didn't care. Good luck, Alex. And then, click. I hung up, blocked the number, and poured myself another glass of wine. Starting over, on my terms. 2 weeks later, I moved into my dream home. Not a cold, empty penthouse, not a symbol of wealth I had to fight for. A place that was mine, small, peaceful, beautiful. No more walking on eggshells, no more doubting myself, no more wondering if the person sleeping beside me was plotting against me. For the first time in years, I was free. Karma strikes again. I thought I had seen the last of him, but fate had one last trick up its sleeve. I was at a business gala, an event filled with investors, executives, and entrepreneurs, the kind of crowd Alex once ruled. And then, I saw him. Alex. He wasn't alone. A young, blonde woman clung to his arm, her dress expensive, her smile calculated. But he wasn't smiling. He looked exhausted, hollow, like a man barely keeping his world together. Our eyes met. For the first time since the trial, he truly saw me. I was glowing, not because of my designer dress, not because of the confidence in my step, but because I had survived him, and I was thriving. The last goodbye I was leaving when I felt a presence behind me. Kelly? I turned. Alex stood there, hands in his pockets. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, did you ever love me? I tilted my head. Did I? Once, maybe, before the deception, before the secrets, before he became the man standing in front of me now. I smiled. It doesn't matter anymore. His lips parted like he wanted to say something, to apologize, to rewrite history. But the thing about history, you can't change it. You can only learn from it. I turned, stepping into my waiting car, the door shut behind me, and just like that, I left Alex Carter in my past where he belonged. The best revenge. A month later, I saw the final headline. Once a financial mogul, Alex Carter declares bankruptcy. I didn't feel joy, I didn't feel pity, I just felt free. Because the best revenge is simply living well. And I was doing just that. I took a deep breath, looking at my future. A future without him. A future that was finally, unapologetically mine.